Alright, summer season has wrapped up and the fall movies are about to start pouring in. The first one I'm going to be talking about is the 3-day limited screened film, 3 from Hell. So finally, here we are. The sequel we weren't even really expecting. This movie screened for a 3-day special event, September 16th, 17th, and 18th. And I was lucky enough to see it during one of those days of the short run. 3 from Hell is the third movie in the, I don't know what you'd want to call it, Rob Zombie's Firefly family trilogy. We saw their deranged beginnings in House of a Thousand Corpses, saw them run from the law in The Devil's Rejects, and now, well, I have to keep the plot as vague as possible. As shown in the trailers, at the end of Devil's Rejects, some way, somehow, some shape, some form, all 3 of our characters at the end of that film survived, and they're now in a maximum prison facility. And let's just say this. There wouldn't be much of a movie if they just stayed there in prison, right? So as far as the cast goes, we have Bill Moseley returning as Otis. What an iconic character. He's this southern Charles Manson-esque type dude that will do anything for his twisted, deranged family. And honestly, this dude is my favorite. He believes he's Satan, the spawn of hell, judge, jury, executioner, you name it. He thinks that's him. There's some great moments with the character in the film, and let me just tell you, of course he guts and mutilates dozens of poor bastards. Next up is Sheri Moon Zombie back in action as Baby Firefly. The batshit crazy, Harley Quinn inspired girl, I should say woman at this point. I'll be the first one to admit, Sheri Moon is not that good of an actress. Not in the slightest. But hey, she embraces the over-the-top and crazy, and I had fun with her character in this movie. Seeing her goofy, psychotic ass interact with the prison guards, and everyone else for that matter, just reinforces the argument that Rob Zombie really knows how to make unique characters. She really stands out in the third act of this film. When everyone else is using guns, of course her wild self would be running around with a Native American headdress, using a bow and arrows. Surprisingly, Sid Haig is back as Captain Spaulding, and he's got some city miles on him. I actually met Sid at a convention called Monster Mania, and he's one of the nicest dudes I've ever met. I was sort of disappointed with the fate of his character in this movie, but regardless, when he was on screen, it was still a delight just to get a glimpse of that clown of a man we once knew. The final cast member is Richard Brake, who's previously worked on Rob Zombie on the movie 31, which I actually have to say one of my friends reminded me. He's also played the Night King on Game of Thrones. In this movie, he plays Otis's half-brother, Winslow Foxworth Coltrane. This dude is a little crazy, but not as nuts as Otis or Baby. But I still enjoyed his character because he was a little bit more down-to-earth than the other two. And by making the character like that, you can kind of see where he's coming from, and you can even get behind some of his crazy, hilarious ideas. Now, did I like this movie? Did I hate it? Well, I'm happy to say I enjoyed this movie. It was entertaining as hell. The kills are over the top, gruesome, and disturbingly satisfying. Like, we're at a point with movies now where we can root for deranged, messed up in the head serial killers. That's how great these characters are. Now, did I like this movie as much as House of a Thousand Corpses? Not even close, because that movie had such a fantastic horror vibe to it, and it was so disturbing. And The Devil's Rejects and this movie are more of like a violent thriller type film. I wouldn't even consider them horror. But I will say I did like it better than The Devil's Rejects, although it's been a few years since I've seen that movie. Speaking of that, go see The Devil's Rejects before you see this movie, because it's a good refresher course, because one of the main plot arcs has to do with something that happens in that film. This movie, it doesn't really stand on its own, unfortunately. It's not like the new Jumanji movie where you didn't have to watch the first film to understand this one. You have to watch House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects to get some of the major plot points in this film and to get half of the references they make. Last but not least, if you guys didn't make it out to see this limited theatrical event, believe it or not, it is coming out on DVD and Blu-ray next month, October 15th. But hey, seeing it in theaters first before everyone else does have its perks. You got a cool little intro by Rob Zombie, and they were giving out promotional posters. Pretty nice. Alright, so the final verdict. If you guys were expecting some crazy in-depth plot, then you honestly don't know most of Rob Zombie's films, and you won't enjoy this movie at all. But if you're down for a fun, entertaining movie with great song choices, iconic characters, gruesome and brutal kills, and even some small comedic moments, you'll probably enjoy this film. It kind of leaves it open-ended. I won't say how, but sequels may be possible. If that happens, I really wish they would return to their horror roots, because the first film, like I said before, is just fantastic, and these last two haven't even come close to achieving what that did. 3 from Hell was a good film. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it gets a 7 out of 10.